Halloween or All Hallows Eve is an annual holiday that is celebrated on October 31st. This year, the scariest day of the year falls on a Monday, unfortunately. Halloween is always much more fun on the weekends. Halloween originated from the Celtic festival, Samhain. The Celts lived in Ireland, the United Kingdom, and northern France about 2,000 years ago, and they celebrated their new year on November 1st. November 1st marked the end of summer and the harvest. November also marked the beginning of the hardships of the cold and dark winter. Back then, winter was often associated with extreme hardships as well as death for the Celts. The Celts believed that on October 31st, the barrier between the world of the living and the world of the dead is especially thin, and on that night the ghost of the dead returned to the world of the living. On this day, the Celts believed the spirits cause various kinds of mischiefs as well as damage crops. There was an upside to all of this, though. It's believed that the presence of spirits made it easier for Druids to make predictions about the future. Druids play an important role in Celtic culture, but even more so back then. They were priests, magicians, and soothsayers. They were also considered intellectuals and were thus very well respected and trusted. Their prophecies were an important guide on how to navigate the winters back then. The Celtic religion, which is widely referred to as Celtic paganism, is still practiced today, although it's practiced by a very small minority. Back then, the Druids built huge sacred bonfires where the common folk gathered to burn crops and even animals as sacrifices to appease the Celtic deities. The bonfire celebration also included dancing, feasting, and honoring their ancestors. During the celebration, the Celts wore costumes made mostly out of animal skins and animal heads to scare off fairies so they would not kidnap their ancestors who had returned to the world of the living. After the bonfire celebration, they would carry a torch lit from the sacred bonfire to their homes. They would then use the torch to relight their own hearth fires, which they extinguished earlier that evening before the bonfire celebration. They believed that in doing so, the hearth fire would bring them good fortune, ward off evil spirits, and protect them during the grim winter that was to come. By the end of 43 AD, the Roman Empire had finally succeeded in conquering the vast majority of the Celtic Empire. They ruled the Celtic people for about 400 years. During that time, two Roman festivals got blended in with Samhain. One of the two festivals were Feralia, a day in October the Romans celebrated their dead. The second festival was the Feast of Pomona, celebrated on August to honor the Roman goddess Pomona. Pomona was the goddess of fruits and trees. Her symbol was the apple, and the mashing of this festival and Samhain probably resulted in the game Bobbing for Apples. On either May 13 of 609 or 610, Pope Boniface IV dedicated the Pantheon in Rome to honor all Christian martyrs. Thus, the Catholic Feast of All Martyrs' Day was established. Pope Gregory III eventually expanded the festival to include All Saints as well and called it the Feast of All Saints. Thus, it became known as All Saints' Day. He also moved the festival from May 13th to August 1st. Eventually, the influence of Christianity spread into the Celtic lands by the 9th century. Christian beliefs began to blend with older Celtic rites and then eventually replaced them. The church, in an attempt to do away with Celtic rituals and replace them with church sanctioned holidays, made November 2nd All Souls' Day. All Souls' Day was essentially the same as Samhain back then. It had bonfires, parades, and even costumes. All Saints' Day was also called All Hallows or All Hallowmas. Samhain nights began to be referred to as All Hallows Eve, and as time passed, it eventually became Halloween.